We're honored to have with us today Ted Costa, who is sort of the George Washington of California politics. He was the first one to start the recall for California that got rid of a governor, which is pretty rare and high rarefied air. Anyway, Ted, you're here at the Club for Growth first annual convention. What brought you here today?
I was invited to be a guest here to be on the panel, and I'm glad that I came. It was a tremendous turnout here today.
Let me ask you this. Where did you get this wild idea to recall a governor?
Well, it was placed, the right to do so was placed into the Constitution by Hiram Johnson in the case that we ever needed to recall a governor. And by golly, the time came that we really needed to recall him, and the people agreed with that. And so we got the idea just because it's there, it's a tool that we have. We have in the past recalled local officials, the People's Advocates recalled, we're about 18 local officials, but never a statewide official.
Okay, let me ask you this now. You got on board with Arnold somewhere along the line after the recall. You got Howard Kaloogian to come in with you and help you, and then you had Darrell Issa come in. How did you guys all work together? You kind of like from disparate areas.
It was a coalition of the willing, is what it was, and we got interrupted by a war in the beginning of the recall, but we pulled it all together, and we had differences. We hammered out our differences.
You had these great guys. You had Buck Johns, and you had also, of course, Sean Steele. You had all these guys, local people that kind of came together to make this thing all happen. But without your start, without your kick in the tail here, I don't think would have recalled that governor.
Yeah.
And changed politics and California history forever. I think you're going to be written up in the history books later. People won't think about it right this second, but in a few years they're going to write about Ted Costa. Now let's get to modern days and fast forward, because you're on an effort now to help with this redistricting, aren't you?
Yeah. Redistricting is a true reform, it's a structural reform, it's meaningful reform, it's the most important endeavor the People's Advocate has ever undertaken, and I believe it's the most important reform since women's suffrage.
Okay, now listen to me. Here's some. We're on the same side. We're on the same side here, but the question that we have for you is onefold. Who chooses these judges based on this recall effort?
Well, 2/3 of the initiative is a process, the checks and balances over on just how they're chosen. And there's several checks and balances to make sure that we get non-biased, non-partial, special masters.
Are they elected? Do we get to elect these judges?
No, we don't get to elect them, but we get to prove their work. If we don't like their work, we can reject it.
What about the governor? Does the governor get to choose who they are?
No, he doesn't.
Well, who gets to choose?
The governor has a special interest in it, and the legislature has an inherent special interest in redrawing their own district lines.
Understood. Now listen, here's the questions that we have. We've got, these are issues that I'm sure you've had to face with the opposition throughout this campaign for redistricting. But everybody wants to know, why can't you just geographically put all the senators into geographical areas without having to have any kind of gerrymandered, oddball-looking districts?
We did that prior to the Supreme Court decision, one man, one vote, on which they said they had to be equal population, and so therefore it opened the door toward more gerrymandering, and particularly the little counties. The little counties are sucked up by the big metropolitan areas, so they no longer have their representatives.
I see.
So it is the criteria that is important on redistricting. The masters aren't really special masters. They simply choose plans which are submitted by anybody. I'm expecting 100 or 150 plans to be submitted to the special masters. They look over the criteria in the Constitution, and then they choose the one that best fits the criteria. All their lives, judges have been trained to interpret the law. All their lives, they've read the law and they've applied the law. So we're asking these judges to read the Constitution and apply that Constitution to maps that are submitted to them. And we think they're the most qualified to do that.
Okay, tell us about Club. Let's
finish that
first
sure. Question. It is crucial that the people that do this are non-partial. And people appointed by the governor, appointed by the legislature, are just not non-partial.
Well, that's where I'm still confused. I don't know how we get these unbiased human beings who have no no particular direction, and are able to come up with a very equitable system.
Every day, the court system meets. Every day, the court system decides major issues of great public importance.
Even your supporters.
This is another issue of great public importance.
But everybody, even your supporters, are going to say, but look at the 9th District Court of Appeals. That's the Circus Court of Appeals. That isn't the real, I mean, so there, you can point out bad judges everywhere. So that's the question that we have about this one particular issue only.
It is so highly unlikely that anyone or any former member of the Ninth Circuit will get chosen for this. Any controversial judge will not get chosen in this process because of the way it is. Because each party leader which chooses someone can't choose someone from their own party, and each of them has a silver bullet to throw out a judge.
So they can blackball somebody.
Well, sure, they can blackball someone that they don't like.
Yeah.
It's got to be a consensus. And how do you get consensus? It's through these filters. But the ultimate...
Somebody said a consensus, and nobody's happy with the results.
Yes. The ultimate is the vote of the people.
Okay, now, Ted Costa, let me tell you that. Let me ask you this. You are now in very high rarefied air in this state. You can call your shots on a lot of different issues on what you want to do in the future.
I wish that was true.
Well, let me say this: you got the will of the people with you on this, and then you've accomplished a great deal. What's the next thing after redistricting? What are you looking forward to do next year or the year before?
I can only do one thing at a time. Right now, we're doing redistricting. There's many issues that can be taken on in the state of California.
So stay tuned, because Ted Costa. Okay, do you have a web address or wherever somebody can?
Sure, we have a web, peoplesadvocate.org, Fair Districts Now, or you go to tedcosta.com and it links right into whatever is the hot issue of the day.
Ted Costa, we can't thank you enough for changing American politics, especially California politics, in the 21st century, and I think it'll never be done again. So in the meantime, we want to thank you so much for appearing today on The Cutting Edge and celebrating this first meeting of the Club for Growth.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. We have the supreme honor to meet one of the great icons of America, well, Art Laffer, doctor of economics, man that set the whole world on fire with the Reagan Revolution, and he's here for the Club for Growth today to give a few of his comments about what can happen in the future. And we're just as honored as we can be, Cutting Edge, a talk show is, to have you with us, sir. And we just want to, if we could mention a couple of things to get some of the old stuff off the table. There were a couple of guys by the name of, one was Robert Mundell, another guy by the name of Jude Wanniski, and who's the other one? Anyway, there was three guys that came up with Mellon, Mr. Mellon, Dr. Mellon, who came up with this idea about the trickle-down theory. So we're here with the source. Can you possibly tell us, were you the one that came down with this supply-side economics idea, or in trickle-down economics, or was it any one of those others?
Well, the idea has been here forever and ever and ever. It's not new at all. In fact, you can find references in the Bible and the Muqaddimah, way back everywhere. So, and Andrew Mellon, as you say, Andrew Mellon, as Secretary of the Treasury, did a great job on it when he was in the 20s, and that even precedes my time on this planet. But in the recent period of time, it was very clear what had to happen. Prop 13 here in California started off with that. Howard Jarvis, Paul Gann, just a lot of neat changes.
You made that all kind of, I guess, realistic. When it was just an idea from an old guy, a couple old guys, Gann and Jarvis, and here's this young, brilliant guy from Stanford that comes up and says, yeah, that's a darn good idea.
Well, it looked like a good idea to me. It still does. I mean, if you look at taxes, people don't work to pay taxes. People work to get what they can after tax. It's that very personal and very private incentive that motivates them to work. And if you lower taxes, what you do is you make it cost firms less to employ a person, so they'll obviously want to employ more. And it increases the amount workers receive after tax, which makes them more incentivized to work. And, just on a very simple one, not to be overly simple, but it's just as true. If you tax people who work and pay people who don't work, don't be too surprised if you find a lot of people choosing not to work.
We're going to ask you a technical question that's not been answered that I can think of in modern day media.
Okay.
And maybe it's just too complex, or maybe it isn't. I'm sure you'll be the first one to tell us. So, we have a fiscal policy on one side. Then we have a monetary policy on the other side. And a lot of people get those two issues a little bit confused.
Sure.
So let's talk about.
Then you have two others as well. I mean, just
all right. Well, then
you have trade policy,
right?
Which you refer to the Great Depression in the 1920s with Mellon, and the Smoot-Hawley tariff was the big one there that killed our country. And then you have what we call incomes policies. These are all the indirect ways government can affect business. Restrictions, regulations, requirements, minimum wage and price controls, all of that. So we have.
Now you're getting a little bit ahead of us, all the viewers out here that don't have all of your brain cells to rub together here. So let's go back to this fiscal policy that people understand.
Spending
right
taxes.
Right now, the people are saying, well, gee whiz, the President Bush is pushing all of this debt onto us that was originally that President Clinton came and saved all his money for us, and now we've got all this debt that we're incurring. And is that fiscal policy, or is that monetary policy?
I mean, what he has is taxes and government spending are the components of fiscal policy. And yeah, it's true. I mean, but it's not because he did something wrong. I mean, revenues were dropping like a stone before Bush came into office. Now, again, I don't think that's Clinton's fault either. But the revenues were coming down, and then of course when September 11th hit, revenues just disappeared. I mean, we had a crash in the economy, we all know, and then you got the financial scandals, and whenever you have that happen, revenues drop like a stone, and you have an economy with a deficit. There are times when the government should borrow, and there are times when it shouldn't. Let me just, for your audience, if I can borrow all I want at 2%, and lend all I want risk-free at 10%, how much should I borrow? Huge amounts. Now reverse those numbers. If I can borrow all I want at 10% and lend all I want at 2%, how much should I borrow? Well, nothing. Obviously, you should pay it back. The point is that when Bush came into office, revenues had collapsed. We'd had an attack on America. We had high unemployment. I mean, he surely couldn't raise taxes on the last three people working. He surely had to increase defense spending. And he did what I thought was correct. Now, thank goodness Bill Clinton and that administration before with Congress had provided us with plenty of fiscal flexibility so that Bush could actually do that and do it correctly. And as you can see, we've come out of that with a minor problem in economics. And frankly, it was a great job that Bush did borrowing. And he did a great job in cutting taxes, a great job in increasing defense spending, and we owe that flexibility to a large extent to Bill Clinton.
So is Mr. Greenspan, is he the one that's in charge of the monetary policy?
He's in charge of monetary policy.
So he makes the decision on whether to spend more money or to print more money or print less.
That's exactly
and let's see if I can get one last incredibly great thought process done here. If it's high interest rates, that means we don't want to print as much money?
High interest rates reflect high inflation. And that was the problem we had in the late 60s and 70s.
Yeah, with Carter.
That was the thing that Paul Volcker, when he became chairman of the Fed in 78, were appointed by a Democrat, Jimmy Carter. Paul Volcker came in and really changed the face of the earth. And he was followed on by Alan Greenspan, who continued that process. And they stopped printing all this money and brought interest rates and inflation way down. And now we have a long-term bond yield below 4%. I mean, that's, the gods truly love.
So are they making more money now, or are they making less?
Well, they're printing less money in the technical sense of what you're saying here. But obviously, with lower interest rates, people are willing to hold more money.
Right.
And obviously, with lower interest rates, you're going to get faster economic growth. And so, in fact, money is growing faster than it would have had we done just the reverse. It's the monetary version of the Laffer curve. By printing less money, you ultimately have to print more money, because you've made the economy so healthy, so strong, and so low in interest rates that you actually need the money to do business. And that's exactly what Greenspan and Volcker did. It's just really wonderful.
Dr. Laffer, we would keep you here at least 2 hours, but I know that you've got a luncheon, you've got to speak to a whole bunch of people for this Club for Growth today. I know they're all going to be just spellbound by your speech and by what you have to say, and all we can say is God bless you, sir. Thanks so much for joining us on The Cutting Edge today, and we can't wait to see you the next time, and maybe for a little bit longer.
Be a deal. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much,
My
sir.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
We're with Cheryl Felicia Rhodes, who is joining the Club for Growth today to support their efforts in this renewing the Reagan legacy. And Cheryl, tell us why you came to visit Sean Steele and Art Laffer and Dick Morris and all the rest of these crazy people today.
Well, restoring the Reagan legacy is an important one to me. Again, I'm in the Hollywood community. I'm a member of 4 unions, Screen Actors Guild, AFTRA, Actors Equity Writers Guild. And I like to point out to conservatives that are always, talking about the Hollywood community not being favorable to our side, one of our own, Ronald Reagan, was the first, conservative in Hollywood. I mean, actually not the first. There were a lot others when he was starting out. And so I have been being an activist among younger actors and actresses. I play Mother Goose in children's videos, but not even so much as political issues, certainly the kids level, but among teenagers and younger actors and actresses, getting them to take a stand for the type of material they're in. And I had been on Scarborough Country not too long ago with Michael Medved, and I was saying that conservatives cannot give up on Hollywood altogether because it's a very powerful communication and propaganda tool, and Hollywood has been losing the rest of the country. And one of the things that I'm fond of saying is that Hollywood has forgotten first principle, if you will, as far as the heroes in films. Maxwell Anderson, the playwright, said you take a character through a series of spiritual and emotional turning points, and they must be a better person by the end of the story. In this time of moral relativism and anti those kind of values, they're losing at the box office. Those that are being successful, whether it was Mel Gibson's The Passion, there's a wonderful film out now called Cinderella Man, the audiences respond. And so conservatives got to know that we have the right message for the entertainment industry, and to have people within the community not, be part of a witness protection program.
Well, one of the questions we always had about that was there's a prevailing wisdom that all members of the Hollywood elite are all very liberal Democrats.
There are many of the ones that are vocal, but there are other people that are not so vocal.
Well, what do you think about Warren Beatty? You think he's going to run against Arnold for governor, or Rob Reiner, or?
Isn't it interesting? They're all very vocal about it, but remember, these people are primarily people pleasers. A lot of people in the industry are that way, and I don't know that they're going to have the stomach, if you will. Notice all the people that have been elected, from Hollywood have been conservatives. With Reagan, starting back with Senator George Murphy, was a star back in the 30s and 40s.
Right.
The actor who, one of the actors on Love Boat, was elected to Congress in Iowa. And I think pretty much to be a conservative in the industry, you've given up that, I'll be worried if not everybody likes me. Maybe they won't.
Well, it's just going to be a real interesting thing. Obviously you've been following all of Arnold's initiatives that he's going to be promulgating over the next several months, maybe with a special election in November. Right. And have you been following what he's been doing as governor, and are you happy with what's been happening there?
Well, I've been, like many, happy with some, unhappy with others, but I feel that he's pushed the ball down the field, to use a sports terminology, and this redistricting is very important to California. I had worked for Arnold at the time of the recall campaign, and primarily for one of the things that I saw and what he did, not in California but in Ohio, when he delivered his speech for President Bush at a very crucial time. And there are things like that he's done, that he has been on the right side. And I think with this initiative coming up, again, it's the conversation out there. And I think I think Arnold will be mad enough at the unions, the attacks that they've been doing on him, that he is going to go forward with this, because that's I think you don't mess with the Terminator to the degree that the unions are taking on. He's, not their usual Republican in California.
Well, Cheryl Felicia Rhodes, we're out of time, but we want to thank you so much for joining us on The Cutting Edge and also for being here for the first inaugural Club for Growth meeting here in California.
Well, it's an honor and privilege.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just wanted to touch bases with Steve and Frank. He's got one of the best newsletters on the web. So Steve, what brought you to this Club for Growth meeting today?
Ideas. That there are speakers here today that have ideas of public policy that create further ideas on how we can reform government. When you listen to folks like Joel Fox, Senator McClintock, Larry Elder, and others, you can get ideas as to economic reform, governmental reform, the ability of pushing forward the agenda of freedom. And that's what I'm hearing here today, is the agenda of freedom.
So you consider yourself one of these blogging reporter guys?
No, I'm just a little guy who lives on a hill in Simi Valley who listens to what's going on and tries to get hundreds of thousands of others to know what's going on.
What's your web address?
Well, I don't have my web address. In 2 weeks is going to be capolitical.com.
And you just sort of eke out your newsletter just to the special chosen few. We feel honored to be among those you send your email to.
I send it to my nearest and dearest 210,000 people every week here in California.
That's just incredible. Well, listen, we want to thank you so much for joining us on The Cutting Edge, and welcome to the first Club for Growth conference here in California.
Thanks, Ron.
Senator Tom McClintock. And for those of you across the world and countries that don't know about California, Tom McClintock is the icon of California. What he did was get together with a whole bunch of other people and create a recall to uproot a ingrown governor. And now we have a brand new governor. We have a brand new way of doing business here in California. And we've got a senator that's looking at farther fields ahead. So if we could just ask you why you came to this Club for Growth meeting here, this first inaugural meeting here in Los Angeles today.
Well, the Club for Growth has had an enormous impact, as you know, at the federal level in assuring that Republican candidates actually stick to their campaign promises and abide by that fundamental philosophy of the Republican Party, which can be summed up in a single word: freedom. We've not had that same kind of force in California, and it is a welcome thing to those of us who've watched the Republican Party do extremely well when it stands by those principles and do very poorly when it does not.
Well, you've been right in the middle of the, we call it doing the low crawl with the 50 caliber machine gun bullets going over your head here as part of being in the, actually in the legislature of California. And since the recall and since the new governor, there's been a lot of action going on. And but we haven't seen so much about what you've been doing. Have you been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes action with this thing, or have you been really out front on a lot of different issues?
It's the minority party in any legislative environment has a much different purpose than the majority party. The majority party gets to govern. That's what the election's all about. But the minority party has an equally important role to play. The minority party is there to become a majority party, and there's only one way that a minority becomes a majority. It must develop a vision of governance that is vastly better than the majority party, take that agenda to the people, and earn their charter to govern. And that's the role of the minority in Sacramento.
Now, there are four.
Putting forward a comprehensive program of reforms that, as I said in the speech today, are necessary to restore the golden state that many of us remember from the last generation.
There are four basic things that, initiatives, I believe, that Arnold's pushing for this November ballot. Do you think are all four of them going to get on there, or are there going to be some that miss?
Well, I certainly hope so, and I know that a great deal of work is going into assure that happens.
Is there one that you have more of a love affair with than others, or?
Well, they're all important, not just because of the policies they enact, but because they constitute a defining struggle between the public employee unions that have controlled public policy in this state for a generation and the people of California who are seeking to continue the reforms that were the body of the 2003 recall election.
What about the unfunded pensions funds? Well, are those just things we don't have to worry about, or?
It's an extremely serious problem. In the year 2000, taxpayers are spending about $165 million a year to keep the pension system afloat. This year, it costs them $2.6 billion. Within the next couple of years, $3.3 billion. It's an exponential increase in costs. It has already driven San Diego into bankruptcy or near bankruptcy. I am told that that Orange County's finances are now in a precarious condition because of the spiraling pension costs that they bear. At the state level, just to give you one example, if you take the payroll of the California Highway Patrol, 41% of the payroll costs are for pensions. Now, you tell me how we help the cause of law enforcement by pricing it out of reach.
Was this sort of set in motion by that 3 at 50 concept where people wind up getting almost what they...
That was part of it.
That basically when they retire, they get
safety.
the same benefits as if they were working.
Yeah, public safety employees in California can retire as young as age 50 with 90% of their highest year's salary for the rest of their lives. The pressure that and other pension giveaways is putting on the state teachers retirement system and the California public employees retirement system should not be underestimated.
Well, listen, we know that you're waiting to go in and watch Art Laffer and Dickie Morris, so we're going to let you go, but we want to just say thank you, Senator McClintock, for everything that you've done, all of the great things. In fact, we have to mention to you on camera that you were really responsible for the cutting edge doing what it's doing because of a inspirational message that you had. We did, I think you were doing a Gil Ferguson breakfast one morning several years ago, and you mentioned about the President of the United States being interviewed by a 7-year-old, and it so inspired Anna, my wife. She says, if a 7-year-old can interview the President, we can go out and interview people. And it's so inspired us that we started doing this, and we want to thank you so much for being a pivotal part of that process. And all the good luck to you and what comes in the future.
Well, thank you for having me today.
We're lucky enough to have found John Morlock in this crowd at the Club for Growth. This is unexpected. We should have you, the treasurer of Orange County, California. And we won't go into all the details about what he did to the last treasurer. But let's talk about what's going on with you right now. We just had a little chat with Tom McClintock. He says Orange County may be going south again. Tell us about that.
Well, we're facing a $1.2 billion unfunded pension plan liability, which will probably rise in the next month to $1.5 billion because of new pension plan benefit enhancements that the Board of Supervisors approved by a 3-2 vote last August. We've also got a $1 billion unfunded liability for retiree medical, and we still have $760 million in bankruptcy debt. So we're really piling on the debts. We've got more debt now than.
Let me see if I got this right. I think we met in May of 2000. You said we had about $980 million we still owed then. So now we've got it. We've shrunk that debt, the original debt, from 980 down to 760 in 5 years.
We've been making our principal payments, yes sir, and our interest payments to the tune of $90 million a year, which really pushes out so much. Maybe just to give an example, that the Los Angeles Unified School District, which is the area we're located as we speak, their unfunded medical retiree benefit is $5 billion, which means they have to fund $300 million a year to prepare for that liability. So we've been electing individuals who have been very generous with benefits that they can push out into the future. We call that moral risk, where you can make a decision now that you don't have to live with, but you can get elected to the next position, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we've got some major problems facing us on the horizon. It's not unique just to the public sector, but the private sector has it with United Airlines, which now encumbers the Public Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, the PBGC, which is facing major liabilities. So we've got some fiscal issues once again that need to be addressed by some stronger leadership in this county, state, and country.
Well, what would you do? What do you do with? I mean, you're exactly right. This thing is a national phenomenon.
One, you've got to talk. You've got to stop doing defined benefit pension plans, which is a reform that Schwarzenegger at least prescribed but backed off of, but should be attacking again in June of next year. You've got to at least stop the bleeding, and you still have to deal with the rat and the python, because it's almost impossible to take away these benefits. That's what you do with public pension plans. With retiree medical plans, you have to start looking at a multitude of ideas: better health, maintenance programs for your retirees, higher contributions from them, other sources of cutbacks, et cetera, et cetera.
But historically, how could you roll things back? Most people don't like that.
No, when a card is played, a card is laid, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't take these away. However, you do when you finally give up, like United Airlines. The pilots for United Airlines, when their pension plan lands into PBGC, they're going to probably take 40 to 60% cuts in their retirement benefits.
All right, listen, I just hear the sound of Dr. Laffer about to be introduced, and I'm going to let you go because I don't want you to miss one word or syllable. And God bless you, sir. Thanks a lot for joining us on the Cutting Edge and this Club for Growth meeting today. I'm so glad to see you. And we're with Sean Steele, who's the director of the Club for Growth here in California. And we're just as honored as we can be to be covering this event for you, sir. And so tell us how this all came about.
It's quite it's a spontaneous combustion. Many things are going on in California. We're looking at a huge series of special elections that will really change what Californians do and how they'll live in the next 20, 30 years. Just with redistricting alone, that could be a change for 100 years. I mean, it's major. This is a conference that you have intellectuals, you have office holders, you have future candidates, you have future leaders, and then you have very well established people. Half the people in the audience could actually be speaking and giving talks because they're quite impressive.
We were just going to say what an auspicious group of individuals you have with us today. I mean, you've got you had Senator Tom McClintock and Art Laffer. And all right, and Art Laffer,
Pat Caddell.
I mean,
who's not a Republican.
Who's not a Republican? Is he your token Democrat for this event?
He's not a token anybody. He's a curmudgeon that doesn't like the way the redistricting looks in California. He thinks it's corrupt and needs to change, and he likes Ted Costa. But the people that are really making policy are here today. People that are thinking about the big ideas are here today. We had planned to get 100. Then we jumped it up to 200. The hotel says they couldn't take any more. We wound up registering at 252 people. There's still people coming in, so we have no room. It's a wonderful feeling to have a great conference and to have not enough room. And then the real energy is in the hallways. In other words, we got great speakers. Art Laffer just tore the audience apart. Just as a magnificent spokesman. Everybody enjoys him. But we have two luncheon speakers, Art Laffer and Dick Morris, the expert on the Clinton family. They're both extremely entertaining.
A little housekeeping, if you will. How does the Club for Growth in California cooperate with the National Club for Growth in Stephen Moore, or how does that all work?
Fair question. Club for Growth nationally deals with federal elections. We deal strictly with state elections and state issues for California. We're independent of the National Club for Growth. We're independently chartered. We're independently incorporated in California, but we cooperate with them because ideologically we have the same point of view and we have the same kind of ideas and the same inspiration. And Stephen Moore is still on our board of directors. He's a good friend of ours. Stephen is going to be speaking in a little while. Stephen is, we're very excited with him. He has now got a new job. After his tremendous success with Club for Growth, he left them last fall after being on top of the game. And now the Wall Street Journal has just hired him as the chief editorial writer for the Wall Street Journal. His first article, first editorial was in yesterday's Wall Street Journal, and he's speaking for us today. So we're lucky with the talent that we have, but you can tell with the energy, the vibrancy, the age differential. We have a good representation of California, a lot of Asians.
So how does somebody join the Club for Growth in California?
Club for Growth is easy to join. We have a website, caclubforgrowth.org. $100, you become a member for a year. That's it. You just register, give us your email, maybe an address and a name as well, and we will give you our best selections for future candidates that really understand how the economy works and how to grow it. We don't deal with social issues at all. We just deal with economic issues, the things that really make the economy grow and expand.
Okay, off the subject, just a tad, we've got Congressman Cox, who just recently is going to be pulled out of his congressional district and sent back to the SEC as the chairman of the SEC. You've got, that also is going to create a whole bunch of things here in California, a whole raft of running rats running around the ship trying to fill in for that spot and then other spots. So what have you got, what's in your crystal ball?
Well, we're very excited about Chris's move to a Security Exchange Commission. He's really one of the intellectual mentors of California Club for Growth and National Club for Growth. He's an outstanding pick. We're going to miss him a lot as a congressman. And whoever runs to succeed him, it's going to be a wide open race, is going to have to really be able to fill those big shoes that he's created and understand the economics that Chris Cox has been representing all these years. My best guess is that the person who wins is going to be the person that's closest to Chris Cox.
All right. Okay. I guess I got to pay my $100 to sign up and find out the real story. Listen, Sean Steele, we just want to thank you again for inviting us to cover this event, and it's just been an honor and a real pleasure. We're gonna stick around and see if we can find a few more high-vis.
Don't forget, Larry Elder's going to announce the Rhinos of the Year. He's doing research. He's got 2 staff members doing it.
Yeah.
He'll announce this afternoon at 3:30 the National Rhino of the Year and the State Rhino of the Year, and we have 2 rhinoceroses, literally, for him to award those candidates. We're going to mail it to them.
Will this be on your website as well?
It will be.
All right.
So stay as long as you can, but this is a lot of fun, and I appreciate you documenting this.
And we're with Joel Fox, who is the man that took over for Howard Jarvis in the what's the name of the group?
Howard Jarvis Taxpayers Association. It wasn't called that then.
Right.
It was called the California Tax Reduction Movement. We renamed it in memory of Howard.
Well, you know everything that there is to know about this stuff, Joel, and you were now. I mean, I'm gonna be a little disconcerted here because you've done so much in your life. What year was that you took over?
I took over in 1986 when Mr. Jarvis passed away.
Right, but since that time, I mean, now you're right in the middle of the big recall effort, and then now you're in the middle of all of these new referendums and so on, and so it's a big thing. And but I was going to ask you something to straighten me out.
Okay.
And that is the GAN initiative.
Right.
After Mr. Jarvis passed away, and he passed Prop 13, and obviously you worked with him on that.
That's right.
Okay, well, what happened? What's with the GAN initiative? I thought that was to limit the...
Well, the GAN initiative came a year after Prop 13, 1979. Paul Gann, who was Howard Jarvis's partner in Prop 13, put this measure on the ballot as a spending limit. And it was effective through about 1987. And in fact, taxpayers got money back because money came in above the limit around 1987. However, a number of people got together and said that the limit was squeezing too hard and there wasn't enough money for transportation purposes particularly. That was the argument that came out of the business community, and the governor at the time, Duke Majan, agreed with them, and so there was an effort to alter the GAN limit. The education people got involved because they said any overage of money should go to them, and so there was a measure that was put on the ballot. I believe it was in 1988, maybe in 1990, which altered the GAN limit. It still exists, it's still in place, but they've lifted
All
it
the
to
teeth
a
are out of
point
it.
where they pulled the teeth out of it. You can't reach it up. They almost reached it back when we had the big .com boom around the year 2000. Came close, but not quite. Now we're probably about $10 billion under the limit.
Do us a favor. Bring us up to date now with our new governor and this historic. I think people really are going to look at this years later and say this was an historic event by taking taking a governor right out of office and putting a new one in.
Yeah.
And so tell us, if you will.
Well, I was part of the Schwarzenegger campaign for the recall, and of course it was an extraordinary event. It was only the second time in American history that governor was recalled. The other one was in one of the Dakotas 80 years ago, and there was a real revolt amongst the people. They just were not happy with the direction of government. They were not happy with the volume of taxation, with the increase of the car tax under Governor Davis, and many other things. And they expressed their frustration with this recall effort, successful recall effort, putting someone who is well known yet not with a great political background into office to try to right the ship. And he's tried to do that over the last 2 years, proceeding up to what he calls the year of reform this year, where he really wants to shake up the status quo in Sacramento, change the powers that be, and try to get some reform done so that we can improve the economy, which will help fund the government, take care of the budget problems, and make things better for all Californians. So that's the
One of the
direction.
things I was going to mention to you also is that you serve on a board, do you, on the initiative process?
I serve on, I'm a co-chairman of a group called the Citizens to Save California. And we came into place to try to promote some of the reforms by way of the initiative. We support Governor Schwarzenegger's reforms, and we support some
But
others.
isn't there a group, I hate to interrupt, but isn't there a group that you belong to that was, in order to assess the value of the initiative process? And
I served on a couple of commissions. Maybe that's what
That's what I'm
you're referring
saying,
to.
yeah.
I've done it twice. Governor Wilson put me on a commission in the early 90s
Okay.
to study the initiative process. And then Speaker of the Assembly, Bob Hertzberg, put me on a commission.
That's the one I'm thinking
I think it
of,
was
yeah.
around the year 2000.
All right.
To assess the initiative process and maybe offer some changes. And like most commissions that I've been on and many other commissions, you write a report and it ends up on a shelf someplace.
I see, because one of the issues, the major issue is that a lot of these things like 187 and things that were passed were overturned in the courts later.
Right.
And we felt, that should have been probably assailed early in the going before they even get on the ballot.
There were obviously a lot of, but the initiative process was set up as a safety valve
Right.
to deal with the frustration of the people. And sometimes the people who put the initiative together are not sophisticated in the ways of the minutia of government and how to do these things, and it gets caught up in some of the political argument, ends up in the courts.
But isn't there a legislative analyst that's supposed to assail each one of these initiatives?
Well, they're supposed to examine it and tell you what it says, but they don't necessarily correct it.
I got you.
And so if there's a mistake initially made, then a court might later take down the initiative because of the mistake.
Well, let's bring us up to modern days now. You've got 4 initiatives looking at the November ballot possibility. You think they're all going to make it?
I think the ones that we've endorsed from the Citizens to Save California will all make it.
Well, which ones are those?
That's tenure reform,
Okay.
making it easier to get rid of bad teachers, lengthen the time in which they have to serve before they receive tenure.
Okay.
There is what we call the Live Within Our Means Act, which is a budget reform, spending cap, if you will, which means don't spend more money than you bring in, essentially. It makes
Right.
some important changes on the automatic spending formulas that are currently in place in California. Then there's the redistricting reform, which will take away the power to draw districts from the legislature and give it to an independent committee of judges. And hopefully we'll have
That's the only one we
fair
found.
issues.
We found any, I think, any buffering, as the saying goes. All the other issues that you mentioned find full support, I think, with the people. But the redistricting issue, based on just one thing, and that's where we find the problem with that is on the judges. Who chooses the judges?
Well, it's done in a pool system, according to the initiative, where there are certain judges that are chosen by legislative leaders. You have to leave the legislature, and the reason you have to leave the legislature in there,
Yeah.
normally you would like them not to be in
Can't we
it at
just
all.
elect them?
That would be, here we go into fine lines here about politics. By the initiative process, you can amend the Constitution of California.
Right.
You cannot revise the Constitution of California.
I see.
That's a bigger deal. Lawyers have told us, since the legislature has the power now to be involved with redistricting, if you take it away from them completely, then you are getting close to a revision of the Constitution, which you cannot do by initiative. So that's why the legislative piece is left in.
I got you.
Still the judges in the end would be the ones that would make the decision, and the final safety is the people get to vote on it. So if they try to do something we didn't like, we would just throw it out anyway. So
Well, listen, you've done yeoman's work with the governor, and we want to tell you that it's a historic, absolutely historic thing to
think
be able
it
to
is.
bring, yourself and Mr. Kalugian in, and Daryl Issa. We love Daryl. I mean, as much as he's been maligned by people, but if it wasn't for Daryl Issa, it wasn't for Joel Fox, it wasn't for Ted Costa, it wasn't for Howard Kalugian, we would not have a new governor. And we would not have even the chance to be in a good spot in the road, and we can't thank you enough for doing all of the great work for the state of California that you do, and we hope you continue to do a lot more of it soon.
I intend to.
Well, listen, thanks a lot
Thank
for
you very
joining us
much.
here
Appreciate
at the Club for Growth meeting with Sean Steele and the whole group, and we've got an auspicious group of people, and I don't want you to miss Dick Morris.
All right.
And thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you for.
We'll save a few introductions for others. We got so many natural leaders here. At this time, it is a great honor. Well, if you thought the first luncheon speaker was pretty good, he wasn't bad, was he? I think Art's a little funny in the immigration stuff, and I'm going to send him the bill. But I love that man, and you know, when he talks, any person that stands on a microphone and says he wants to abolish all taxation, it can't be bad. I mean, all taxation, damn, I've been waiting, not even Reagan said that. We have a real special person that's going to be introducing our main speaker here, and I think it's a surprise to him, our second main speaker. Everybody's the main speaker. We're very egalitarian at Club for Growth. Dick, did you meet everybody at every table so far? I think there's a couple of tables over there you didn't get.
One of those pleasant relationships where I decided in the first 2 seconds that I hate his guts, and then as I got to know him, I got to like him more and more, and now I love him. Usually it works the other way around. Well, thank you very much for having me here today. This is a very important time that we're in, and you were kind enough to trace my personal odyssey here, but I really followed Winston Churchill's mandate that if you are not a liberal when you're 20, you have no heart, and if you're not a conservative when you're 40, you have no brains. So on schedule, I converted to liberalism, and when the alarm clock rang for my 40th birthday, I became conservative and began to work only for Republican clients. Except for one who I grandfathered in, who was the governor of Arkansas. There's this wonderful moment when my partner and I, who had been partners for 5 or 6 years, broke up our firm, and we decided to divvy up our clients so we wouldn't fight with each other. And he really got the better of me in those negotiations. He got Pete Wilson. And I got stuck with the governor of Arkansas.
Stephen Moore, one of the founders of the Club for Growth. And we had the rare opportunity to meet Stephen some couple of years back at the Investor Business Daily event up in Simi Valley at the Reagan Library. And from that point on, your career's just been skyrocketing, sir. So tell us, how did you do all of this stuff with this Club for Growth, a small little club idea that you started yourself?
Well, you know, we really felt that what was so important was to have an organization that people who were conservative, who believed in free market principles, but were fed up with the way a lot of the Republicans were voting and a lot of the ways that the Republican Party was spending money, that this would be a way for people who were conservatives first and Republicans second to channel their money to effective candidates around the country. And we were able to, from 2000 through 2006, help elect about 3 or 4 outstanding people to the United States Senate and about 3 dozen very strong free market conservatives to the House of Representatives. So we finally have a foothold of people who won't buckle under pressure, who won't go with the wind, who will put principle over politics, and we're very proud of that record.
So are you getting hate mail from Emily's List or
Well,
what?
of course, we borrowed from the Emily's List model, and I'm really excited about what Tony Strickland and Sean Steele have done here in California of creating a California Club for Growth. I've always said if any state needs a Club for Growth, it's California. They have done an outstanding job. The organization is flourishing. It's becoming a political tour de force in this state, and so I'm very proud to be a founding member of that organization. and to see how it has flourished over the last couple of years.
Well, what's going to happen though? I mean, you've gone on to the Wall Street Journal
Right, I just recently...
and what do you do for the Wall Street Journal now?
I'm a member of the editorial board at the Wall Street Journal, and I'm their senior economics writer, so I write
Whoa.
editorials on economic and political issues, covering what's happening in Washington and on Wall Street. Mostly I'll be writing those unsigned editorials, but occasionally I'll be writing columns under my own name, and so I'm very excited. This is the opportunity of a lifetime.
So these are all those liberals will be able to spotlight that Wall Street Journal editorial page and say, see, those right-wing wackos are at it again.
Well, you know, there's no newspaper in the entire country that has had a more powerful impact than the Wall Street Journal, dating back to long before even the Reagan years. So it's a great group of people. I'm joining with people like John Fund and Paul Gigot and Dan Henninger. And so keep your eye on the Wall Street Journal editorials. I'm really proud to be part of that team.
Well, listen, we wanted to just take this opportunity to, on this commemoration of this first event for the Club for Growth here in California, we just wanted to thank you so much for everything that you've done in the past to make these things happen. And I can see you're passing on the legacy here very well.
Well, I certainly hope that the conservatives in the state of California recognize that what Tony Strickland and Sean Steele have built is one of the most important new political organizations on the horizon. And I believe that it's going to have a very profound impact in the next couple of election cycles. You know, we've got Arnold Schwarzenegger in the governor's office. Arnold has done, I think, a fabulous job, but he needs more conservatives in the legislature. And that means we need to root out the rhino Republicans, what I call the Republicans in name only, but also defeat some of these socialistic Democrats, which happens to be about 2/3 of the Democrats. I think they're more socialists than Democrats. And if we can do that, I think we can really return California to its glory days of high economic growth and prosperity for people, whether they're Asian or Latino or white or black. This is, you know, the great melting pot state, and the tragedy is through anti-growth policies over the last 10 years, California has really floundered, and it does show that bad policies have consequences. And what hopefully we're going to learn through the California Club for Growth is that good free market policies have growth consequences.
One last question. And this one is the little puff question, so I have to give you a quick puff question here just to put the end of this together. What do you think about all these pensions that are, and what's going to happen to the United States of America with all these unfunded pensions in the world?
Well, you know, we have something in the neighborhood of $20 trillion in unfunded liabilities in the Medicare and Social Security system. So we absolutely need to privatize Social Security, to give every American their own personal accounts. And that is the battle royale that's going on in Washington. I know we're going to be fighting it every day.
Well, what about this pensions, though? You got to answer that question. Is anything, the pensions, the unfunded pension requirements of municipal employees and all these other things?
I mean, a lot of these governments are going to go bankrupt if they keep offering these lavish pensions that are for government employees that are much higher than what private sector workers get. So it's a very big problem, especially in California, where, you know, your California pension system is teetering on the verge of bankruptcy.
Well, this is the godfather of the Club for Growth. We want to thank you so much, Stephen Moore. We don't think we have to wish you any good luck. Yeah. We think you got a big thing ahead. We'll be looking for you in the Wall Street Journal with Byline and without, and we'll be certainly wishing you every good luck in the future. And thank you so much.
Thank you for what you're doing as well.
Thank you. Dick Morris is our keynote speaker, I guess the top of the list for all the speakers today here at the Club for Growth. And we're just honored to have you with us. And tell me, you know, you really went through some real detail in your speech today about what's going to happen in the election coming up. You really think that Hillary's going to just beat everybody, or what?
Yeah, I think that Hillary has a lock on the Democratic nomination. I think that she controls all of the money in the Democratic Party. She is way ahead in the polls. She has really no opponents. Kerry is a retread, so is Edwards. And I just don't think there's any chance that she would be defeated in the nomination.
Well, let me ask you this. Let's get that. I knew that's where this was going, but we're really here for the Club for Growth today. And
well, let me also say that I'm against her. I oppose her. I think she'll be running president. And the theme of my speech today was that the only person that could really stop her is Condoleezza Rice, and that people should be drafting Condi to get into the race.
You know, we did a little research on you before we came today, and one of the things we were just shocked to find out that you'd worked with Trent Lott and Jesse Helms.
That's right.
So,
I was the only person.
Wait a minute, let me see if I've got this
I
right.
was the only
Trent
person-
Lott, Jesse Helms, and Bill Clinton.
The same. I worked for Bill Weld, Jesse Helms, and Bill Clinton in the same year. And the only thing they all have in common is they won.
That's funny. That is hilarious. How do you draw from all of those three different variances?
Well, I think that all three of them have very good points about them. I think that Bill Clinton's welfare reform proposal and that he signed, and the balanced budget and the anti-crime stuff, I thought was very effective. I think his foreign policy was terrible. I think he was too weak on terror, and I think that he let North Korea develop the bomb on his watch. And I think obviously his personal conduct left a lot to be desired. But I don't think that a Republican could have signed welfare reform. I don't think they could have gotten it passed if there was a Republican in the White House.
You know, you've got
that
you're like
legislation cut child poverty in half and cut the welfare rolls in half.
we don't even know where to
Just
start with you, Dick
Just-
Morris. I mean, you've forgotten more than most people will ever know. One of the things that we were also shocked to find out is you helped Viktor Yushchenko from the Ukraine win his election. How is that possible?
Well, I think it was very, very important to defeat the Putin initiative in the Ukraine. It's a combination of the Russian mafia, the old KGB, the stalwart communists led by Putin. And the key thing was to keep Russia and the Ukraine separate. Because once they get together, you have the former Soviet Union without communism. And Russia is 150 million, Ukraine is 50. All of the other 14 Soviet satellite former parts of the Soviet Union are only 70 million. So the key is to keep those two apart, and the Ukraine now really looks forward to a Western way of life. And it was an honor and a privilege to
But how did they contact you, or?
Sure, they contacted me and invited me to Kiev. And my friend who advises me on Eastern Europe, on backing the freedom movements there, said, whenever you go someplace, there's a risk. But if you go to Kiev, there's no risk. You will be shot. So I met with Yushchenko's campaign in another city in Eastern Europe and never went into the Ukraine because of...
How can we get Dick Morris to go over there and support the candidates in France and Germany now?
Well, I was very involved in the no vote in France on the Constitution.
Wow.
I'm a strong opponent of the Constitution there.
Wow.
And I worked for the United Kingdom Independence Party, which opposes the Euro and the new Constitution.
Unbelievable.
And with them, I worked with the no forces in France, and that was just as important a blow for democracy as the Ukrainian vote was.
That's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Listen, we've taken too much of your time. We
Thank
know
you
you've
very
had a long discussion and lunch talk and all of that. We just want to thank you so much from the Club for Growth and also for the Cutting Edge Talk Show.
The Cut for Growth is such an important organization, and this is the second of their groups that I've spoken before, and I just love them.
Hey, well, everybody was just thrilled to hear you, and we really appreciate
We
your
had a good
time. Thanks so much.
Thanks very much.